Tonight we will invite the second most senior of our visitors to give some teaching, and that's Tanajan Boon Chuu, and Venerable Siripanyo will kindly come with the group. Will be translating. Tanajan Boon Chuu has been ordained for over 40 years as a monk. Ordained with Ajahn Chah in Ubon, and he's currently the abbot of Wat Wanabodhiyana, which is informally known as Wat Kuan, or the Dam or Reservoir Monastery. It's a monastery that was offered to Ajahn Chah. It's almost an island in the middle of a reservoir that was made when they made a hydroelectric dam in one part of Ubon near Laotian border. Very nice forest, a nice place to practice. Ajahn Chah liked that monastery. And Ajahn Chuu is there, the resident abbot, and he'll give us some teaching tonight.
Today, Venerable Ajahn Kalyana has given me the opportunity to say some words and to speak to the community here in Australia. I come from Thailand, and this is the first time I've been able to travel here to Australia. I never imagined that I would do so. I used to just hear about this country. So now I've been given this opportunity to travel here and take part in this ceremony this week of installing the marker stones in this Uposatha hall. So having arrived here and staying here in the monastery, looking around, seeing the dwellings and the state of the forest and the environment, I find it very peaceful. It's very secluded and very very appropriate place, and to see the Sangha and the lay people here brings on much joy and happiness in my heart, because I can see the faith of the people and the diligence of the practice. In the evenings, people travel here to meditate and give up their time and put forth much effort. This practice is something which we have to take on and train in very gradually. We have to do it continually. It's a threefold training. The Buddha taught the training in sila, virtue, samadhi, concentration, and panya, wisdom. And this is the svakato Dhamma. This is the Dhamma well expounded by the Buddha. So we should practice in line with this teaching, or this way of training. We have to train our body, our speech, our mind, our actions of body, speech and mind in practice. And we understand in time that virtue lies within us. It's right here. Samadhi or concentration is right here. The wisdom will arise here. All this takes diligent effort and much patient endurance. So we apply ourselves to the practice, sometimes sitting meditation, sometimes walking meditation. And it's just like receiving the benefits from food. If you just look at your food, then you won't get the benefits that you need or you want. Food has to be taken, has to be put in your mouth, chewed and swallowed. And you don't get full straight away either. If you just have one mouthful, it's good, but it still doesn't fill you up. You take the second mouthful, chew it, swallow it, and you're still not full. You have to carry on gradually, mouthful by mouthful, until you really do feel full. And practice is the same. It's based on constant effort and lots of patient endurance. We call this khanti, patient endurance. Sometimes our lives, our minds are very confused and chaotic, very busy. This is simply the nature of the mind being a conditioned thing bound up with many causes and conditions. It's always proliferating about this and that. But sometimes it's peaceful. But both of these, the confused and chaotic mind and the peaceful mind, are unstable. They're bound up with the process of change. It's not really certain how it's going to be. If your mind's confused and chaotic 1 minute, it's unstable, it can change. It's not really sure. If you feel real peace of mind, this too is not stable, it changes. So wherever there's a confused and chaotic mind, that's where you'll find the peaceful mind. It lies within it. And this needs patient endurance to find it. Usually we buy into our moods, but the Buddha taught us to observe carefully the nature of our mind. He said, whoever sees the mind will be free from Mara's snare. Mara's a word for those things which obstruct practice. It can be a personification of evil, but often it means just kilesas. Mara is kilesas, the obstacles to our practice, our desires, those things which are unwholesome. It's kilesa which leads us to harm other beings, other people. So learn to understand the nature of the mind. Sometimes we need things or desperately want them, and then we don't get them, so the mind is agitated. Even if we do get them, the mind is still agitated because maybe we want more, or maybe we're not quite satisfied with it. So we always need patient endurance to bear with the mind, and sati, mindfulness. And mindfulness is what gives rise to wisdom. It gives rise to light and clarity of vision. The Buddha said, Natti panya sama apa. There's no light as bright as the light of wisdom. A mind which is wise will be cool and peaceful. And this is the mind which follows the Buddha's instructions, which he laid down for us. And all of this needs much khanti, patient endurance. So whenever we get things, whenever we don't get things our way, we have to be patient. And even when we get things our way, it's never entirely perfect. Sometimes getting the things we want even leads us to even more dukkha, suffering. So we always need patient endurance in life and diligent effort and energy. We have to have mindfulness to really be aware whatever we're doing, saying, and thinking, not just following our moods and getting lost in whatever desire or whim arises. Not getting lost in delight, or sometimes the opposite, aversion or negativity. See that these are just transient moods. We learn to be aware and observe them, rather than being fooled or tricked by our moods, which can lead us to deluded states, and getting intoxicated or lost in the excitement of the world, seeking fun and excitement. Because the Buddha always taught that seeking incitement, seeking delighting and fun will always lead to dukkha, suffering. So taking up this practice of Dhamma should lead to a gradual increase in our sati, or mindfulness. The anxiety or the confusion, the busyness of the mind will gradually decrease, and our peace of mind will increase. All of this takes place slowly and gradually and naturally. The mind is a conditioned thing and is constantly proliferating and creating. The mind experiences sukha, happiness, and dukkha, suffering or pain, likes and dislikes. But we learn in time to see all of these are just moods and thoughts arising and passing away. And so we don't let our mind flow out down the stream of all of these moods and thoughts. So our mind becomes firm. This is what we call samadhi, a mind which is firmly well established and concentrated. So after much gradual training, this arises. But again, we need khanti, which is patient endurance, enduring patience, the ability to bear with all moods and thoughts. See them as just moods, thoughts arising, remaining for a short while, and passing away. So rather than getting lost, buying into and believing, or deluded, intoxicated by our whims and fancies, Samadhi is a mind which is firm. We have to do this gradually and slowly, and it always takes patient endurance, patience. The Buddha said, Kanti paramang tapotitika. This means patient endurance is the supreme incinerator of defilements. Kanti, patient endurance, is one of the paramis, the Buddha's spiritual qualities, which he developed himself on his spiritual journey, and we have to allow it to arise in our own hearts. If we have true Kanti or patient endurance, this is the thing which will help us eliminate our kilesas or defilements. Our defilements will be gradually burnt up by the power or the fire of patient endurance. So Luang Por's given us some introductory words on Dhamma this evening, Dhamma practice, and now there's an opportunity for anybody who would like to ask any questions. Now is the time Luang Por would answer some questions. So speaking with regard living with Luang Por Chah emphasized our constant training of the mind in every situation. We had to be constantly aware of our minds, whether doing morning chanting or evening chanting or any of our daily activities. Everything was an opportunity to train the mind. After eating the meal in the morning, we would have to go back to our huts and begin walking meditation, carry on putting our awareness, putting forth effort to developing awareness right through the morning until at least midday. Then we might have a rest for a short while. At 3 p.m. we'd come out into the central area and sweep and clean and mop the halls and do the cleaning of the buildings, all the time training our minds training our minds through these activities, through these actions. At 6 p.m. having bathed and washed ourselves, we take up more walking meditation before evening chanting. So Luang Por Chah emphasized constantly watching our minds throughout all activities and training our minds. We would always need effort. It was a gradual, slow training. He encouraged us to develop and cultivate mindfulness all the time. For example, on Bindabata, alms round, he would suggest that we counted our paces, our steps as we walked out of the hall, having put on our robes. We'd walk out of the monastery and walk down the road towards the village, counting our steps along the way. And then when we got to the village, and lay people began to put food in our bowls as we walked through the village, you'd count how many men, how many women were on the route today. And then leaving the village, you'd count your steps all the way back to the monastery to see if you could maintain mindfulness. And if you lost track or lost the count at any point, started thinking about something else, when you got your mindfulness back, you'd start again. Walking meditation, he'd encourage us to do it a lot, to put forth effort. With every step, Buddho, have mindfulness, pick up the mantra, to keep mindfulness which is aware of the walking. Whether when eating, taking our meal, we might determine how many mouthfuls we're going to have that day and count and make sure we stick to the right amount of mouthfuls, or at least we'd have mindfulness to know how many we'd had, and maintain mindfulness, knowing that now we're chewing, now we're swallowing. So this is how to practice constantly. Luang Por Chah emphasized doing, action, practicing through action. He always used to say that a huge amount of words is not as good or beneficial as a single correct action. He taught us to depend on ourselves, to make a refuge of oneself, not to be heedless, and always emphasize that action, our daily actions, would provide the basis for our awareness to arise. On what's called the One Pra in Thai, the observance day, the Poya day, the 8th day of the lunar moon, the 14th day, the 15th day, he would encourage us to take up the practice of not lying down, nesajik. we would walk meditation and then sit meditation, alternating through the night. It was just a way of putting forth effort right through the night. Sometimes if you were old or sick, there'd be an exception because it could be quite difficult or painful. But even then, to at least make a special effort to practice late into the night, 11 p.m., midnight. This effort is very important. There's a Buddhist saying, Viriyena dukkhaṃ maccheti. You overcome suffering, you conquer suffering through effort and energy. And this putting forth of effort is what would always lead to good practice. If you put forth effort, you see the benefits. It's not something which is beyond our capacity to realize the fruits of the Dhamma practice. If we have sati sampajanya, mindfulness and clear comprehension, coupled with patient endurance, khanti, this will lead slowly to our success, whether you're a member of the Sangha or a lay person practicing in lay life. Sati sampajanya, mindfulness and clear comprehension, will take care of your mind in all situations, whatever activities you're undertaking. A very simple summary of the whole Buddha's teaching is that good actions bring good results. Unwholesome actions bring unwholesome results. So action, or the things we do in life, are very important because they're the causes for the results which we will experience. Ye dhamma hetu pabbhava was a very famous saying of the Buddha. All things which arise because of causes. Hetu means a cause. So actions are the good causes for the future. If the causes we put into place today are good, then the results will be good. So with sati sampajanya, mindfulness and clear comprehension, we're always practicing. It means whatever we do, our job, our task, our role in life, we have to take responsibility for it. And we learn to see that whatever aspect of our life needs improvement, needs change or adaptation, then we have to change it. Those things which are wholesome and unwholesome, if they're wholesome, we make them better. If they're unwholesome, we abandon them. Another important aspect of a spiritual practice is harmony, or samadhi. We have to learn how to develop and live in peace and harmony with our friends. After the Buddha attained enlightenment, at first he was alone. But in time, the Sangha grew up around him, good friends. And this harmony and strength of a group of practitioners gives rise to a certain strength. And so the Dhamma of the Buddha was able to spread. And it was the same with Luang Por Chah. At first, in the early days of Wat Nong Pat Pong in Thailand, there were very few disciples. The ways of training, what we call the Kowat Patibat of Ajahn Chah, weren't very well known outside of the monastery yet. But in time, disciples came to study under him and began to take his methods of teaching and training abroad. Westerners, foreigners came from different countries, and in time they went home and spread the Dhamma that he taught and the way of training, monastic training and training the lay people, spread all over the world. And in Thailand it's the same. All throughout Thailand now, his disciples are teaching in the way that he taught. Every year, all the disciples gather together in a ceremony, in harmony, to honor Ajahn Chah and to strive to develop the qualities that he embodied. So whenever there's harmony and we develop true spiritual qualities, this will lead to the happiness that arises from a peaceful mind. It's just the same in a family. If you have a family and that family develops the qualities of Dhamma and harmony, then there will be peace and happiness arising. So Australia here is very far from Thailand, but every year Ajahn Kalyano goes to take part in the annual festival in honor of Luang Por Chah. So it's as if even though we're far away from Thailand here, in a sense in our hearts we're still very close to Thailand. This is what is meant by Kalyana Mitta. Kalyana Mitta means spiritual friendship or wholesome friendship, beautiful friendship. People who help one another. people who point out to each other what's right and what's wrong, and what should be abandoned and what should be taken up. We point out the correct path of practice to one another. This is the true meaning of a truly good friend. Another quality that good friends have and people of quality have is to know the debt of gratitude that we owe to others, people who have helped us along the way in our lives. Whether you're monastic or lay people, it's the same. We all have people who we have relied on in the past, like our good friends. Particularly as Dhamma practitioners, we have the Kruba Ajahn, the enlightened teachers and masters who have taught us all the way back to the Buddha himself. And it's their qualities and their teachings which are of great benefit even now. The things they developed in those days are now of great benefit to us, the later generations. We can think of them practicing away in the forests and mountains and strive to develop the same quality. And this brings up a sense of katanyu, this being people who know the debt of gratitude that we have for those teachers, and this wanting to pay that back by practicing in line with them. If we are akatanyu, if we are people who don't recognize the debt we have to others, then in the Buddha's teachings this is a sign of somebody who hasn't, whose mind isn't very worthy or noble. So the teachings of the Buddha are satya, are truth, and this truth leads to happiness. Anyone who practices and develops truth will experience happiness. And it's the same from whether it's the Buddha or our teachers, like Ajahn Chah and the other teachers, the other enlightened masters. They taught and trained us, because otherwise we could often be very, very lazy. They encouraged us to always have patience, always have endurance, just like on the observance day, not to lie down. The mind doesn't want to do these things, but the teachers encouraged us to have patient endurance. And when we listened to the teachings, we got more encouragement. You walk meditation, you sit meditation right through the night, right through until early in the morning. There's morning chanting, and then after morning chanting at dawn, you finally disperse. And this gives rise to great happiness and confidence that you know you're leading your lives, following in the Buddha's footsteps. And it's the Buddha himself and our enlightened teachers, like Ajahn Chah, who led the way. But practice is something we have to see for ourselves. If the mind is busy and confused a lot of the time, then if just once we can taste a bit of peace, then we'll know the results of Dhamma practice for ourselves. It's just, again, it's like food and drink. Any food and drink, you have to taste it for yourself to really know what it tastes like. You can't force these teachings to arise in the mind, and no one can actually force us to practice. So we have to depend on ourselves to practice and then experience the teachings for ourselves. Sometimes the mind wants to do things, but they're not appropriate. They lead to dukkha. Sometimes the mind doesn't want to do things, but really we should do these things. And having teachers is very beneficial, helps us find the necessary patience we need to practice correctly.